turn that off, you know,
It's not gonna work.
because it's on all your phones.
Maybe you can stand, put this in front of us,
Yeah.
and we can see it.
So they can't
So the
turn
public will be able to see it. I think if it's just Mark Matt here, I don't think he'll be mad. I'll email it to him.
What are you gonna do?
Stretch code.
Oh, Jesus.
Thank you for your help there. Thank you. I got your thing.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I apologize.
I delivered them last week,
Generally have,
so.
yeah.
Hang on a second.
Congrats on your win. Sarah,
Oh,
congrats on your win.
thank you very much.
Probably just have your
That's
hearings
good.
of December 21st and then
It's a little stressful, huh?
I'm glad it's over. I'm glad I have a four-year term. Congratulations, Mark.
Thank you, you too. I was waiting to call, but I couldn't call.
No, that's okay. I apologize. Usually I got the
I knew you were okay.
connector with me.
Normal works, or should I have my
Hi,
bag?
Mike.
All
I
right.
look into what I can. Right. Good thing, too.
Good. That's the problem, Max.
Sir, congratulations.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Nice job.
Oh, you're stuck with me for 4 more years.
We are not stuck. That's not the right word.
Wow.
We're represented.
One after
What?
6.
She printed it out for you.
Hey, Dan.
Yeah, little things before.
Oh, sure.
Oops. Sorry. Lost track of time there. Call the meeting in order. First item is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for being here. Any deletions, additions, corrections to the agenda? I have some under roundtable. D, under 11, will be the OSEBA termination agreement. E will be Main Street grant. And then F will be lost revenue agreement with Bonadio Group. Anybody else?
What'd you say D was?
D is OSEBA termination agreement, or OSEBA termination agreement. Okay. Meeting minutes of 11/8/2021.
Make a motion, I accept the minutes.
Moved by Mike, need a second?
Second.
Any deletions, changes, or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next is abstract 10 dated today in the amount of $138,346.10.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, number 4. See, Josh, I told you it was going to be quick. So, this is Josh Stack, and you're with CNY Regional Planning.
Yeah, actually here on behalf of NYSERDA,
NYSERDA.
New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. And CEC's the regional planning agency coordinate the presentations, but
Okay.
I'm here on NYSERDA's behalf.
Okay, good. So we have talked a little bit about stretch code, but Amanda spoke at the mayor's dinner, and we thought this would be a good opportunity for some questions and some ideas to look at the stretch code and why we shouldn't do it or why we should do it. And so,
Great, well, I certainly appreciate the time, and I apologize for the technical difficulties with the presentation. But I can share a copy of it.
Okay.
It's mostly photos anyway.
Okay.
And I'll just kind of work through the slides a little bit. But, and please interrupt any questions you have. I'm happy to answer those, because I'd like to make sure that it's useful and helpful for the board, and not necessarily just a package presentation. But so what the New York Stretch Code is basically a readily adoptable, more strict local energy code. Section 11-109 of the state energy law allows municipalities to adopt more stringent local energy codes. And so what NYSERDA has done with New York Stretch, basically worked with a group of diverse stakeholders, code experts, builders, architects, came together and created an overlay to the current state energy code. So it doesn't replace the current energy code in full, but what it does is it makes certain provisions of that energy code a bit more stringent. It increases the energy efficiency and some of the on-site inspections required under the code. So what it does, the New York State 2020 Energy Code was adopted May 12th, 2020. I'm sure everyone is aware. Came into effect almost 2 years ago now, really. And what that does is set the minimum energy code standard for New York State. And what New York Stretch does is basically look at the 2020 code and then provide very specific revisions to it. So it works as an overlay. This is, and I can print out more, email these, but this is available on NYSERDA's website. It's the comparison of New York Stretch to the current 2020 energy code. This is kind of my beat up copy, but I'm happy to pass it around if anyone wanted to look at it. And so that document tells you exactly how New York Stretch modifies the underlying energy code. So really, really helpful when you start to evaluate it as a community and as a local legislative body about how you're actually modifying your energy code if you were to adopt this. A lot of what's in New York Stretch is based on industry best practice, and I can say that as a builder. My dad and I have been a residential builder in the central New York area for probably, well, him for 40 plus years, and I grew up on the construction site with him, you know, from that tall, and child labor laws might not have applied with all the work he did, but I've been back with him full time now for 20 plus years. So the houses, for example, we built in Skinny Atlas have qualified for New York Stretch for about the past 20 years. So there's really nothing in there that is earth-shatteringly different, new, or unfamiliar to builders. There are some performance testing requirements, some changes that builders, you know, there's been opposition in other communities. I wouldn't say that there hasn't, to be honest. The city of Canandaigua, some builders there were opposed because they thought it added cost. And we can share some information on the cost, and I can tell you as a builder, I think in some ways there could be an additional cost, but in other ways not, depending on how you achieve and comply with the code. So it really comes down to what compliance path you pick and what systems and materials and strategies you choose to do it. So there could be an additional first cost to it, but not necessarily.
Is it for new and renovations or just new construction?
New and existing both.
New existing, okay, so
And-
like somebody's on Berkeley Drive putting an addition on, and we had this code, they would have to meet that code with the addition, but not the main house,
That's correct.
Okay.
It doesn't change the requirement code under Chapter 5 for existing buildings, that any unaltered portion of the building, you don't need to upgrade that to the existing code.
And
Not
residential and commercial, or is it just? okay.
Both residential and commercial.
Okay.
What climate zone are we in?
I believe you guys 5A here.
I don't have that in front of me, so.
Yeah, I believe Onondaga County is 5A, and I actually live in Cazenovia, so my backyard is town of Cazenovia, Madison County, which is 6A, and my house is 5A as well. So really readily adoptable, uses very familiar code language that any builder, designer, or architect is already familiar with. Again, you know, as a builder, we're pretty conservative as it is to comply with state law and warranty and quality concerns. So there's nothing in this code that we haven't dealt with for the past 15 plus years. So there's really nothing of concern that, at least from how we build, that would be different. I'm not sure every builder would say that to you, to be honest. I think other builders have thought it would add costs. So, you know, Mary Thompson and the HBA here would be a really nice resource to talk to, because again, I'm a neighbor from Cazenovia, so I'd like to be honest to say that certain builders have been concerned about it. And so you may want to speak to that community, and I would sit at the table as part of that conversation and try to talk about it. So I think there's a lot of value here. So
The one thing we had heard was that it was an additional, and I can't remember the number that Mike gave us, but it was, you know, like a 20% increase in cost.
No, so I would strongly disagree with the 20% increase in cost. I know when the Rochester home builders looked at it, they hired a consultant. They thought it added about $10,000 to the cost of a new residential house. NYSERDA says about $1,900 incremental first cost. We looked at the Rochester HBA numbers, said we disagree with the 10, but maybe it's closer to $5,000 to the build of a new home.
Okay.
NYSERDA has prepared economic analyses they put on the website. Those are pre-pandemic. And, you know, again, as a local and a neighbor, I would say that those economic studies aren't useful to me as a builder, because they're more a higher scale, policy level analysis, not a local market conditions. So one thing NYSERDA did do in response to that was, in the residential code, New York Stretch had required whole house mechanical ventilation in this climate zone using either an ERV or an HRV, and that's a heat recovery ventilator or an energy recovery ventilator, so balanced ventilation, which all the building science says is by far best practice. Because typically if you build a house today, you can do it one of three ways. You can do exhaust only, like a bath fan and an upstairs master bath with the proper setting. Actually complies with code for mechanical whole house ventilation system. All the studies and research say that's absolutely not effective. Really poor way to ventilate. It brings air out of garages, crawl spaces, basements, really everywhere you don't want to bring air into the building to breathe. So what New York Stretch said was you need to install a balanced system using this type of technology. And so in presentations before NYSERDA changed the requirement, for us that was about $3,000 per house extra. And that was one area we said this absolutely would increase the cost of a new residential house if you had to integrate this ERV. Should you do it for your clients and homeowners anyway? Absolutely. But NYSERDA actually made that provision optional. So one of the biggest cost increases under New York Stretch, NYSERDA said communities can opt out of that whole house mechanical ventilation provision if they choose to. And there's funding attached to it, and that's where Amanda Mazzoni or Chris Carrick can help with in terms of how much the village would qualify for if they adopted it. And
What funding? What do you mean by
clean energy
that?
communities?
So it gives us,
NYSERDA
if we
funding?
adopt it, it gives us a credit, another point towards, and then if we wanted to do a project, and I'm just using LED streetlights as an example, that's what we got with the last grant, but we could find something else to do another grant, like a electric car. We talked about for the code enforcement officer buying an electric car, and then having that for him instead of a gas vehicle. Things like that, and the money would go and help us towards that.
Yeah,
Purchase
as I
of that.
understand it, there's no limit on how the money is spent, but I would defer to
Yeah.
Chris or Amanda.
Amanda,
That's not- That's that program I don't know well, so I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to give you back.
We don't have those, we don't have enough points yet, so.
So what New York Stretch really is intended to be is essentially one code cycle ahead in terms of efficiency, not the actual provisions. It's not that New York Stretch will be adopted as the next state energy code, but in terms of the efficient measures that New York Stretch includes, it's intended to be about one code cycle ahead. And that's why they call it a stretch code. There'll be a graph in the presentation that I showed, and you can see kind of where New York Stretch aims at. So benefits to communities, one thing the village would benefit from if they adopted. When a municipality adopts a more stringent local energy code, they also can administer and interpret that code. Under the current energy law, if you would like to interpret the energy code or obtain a variance, you need to submit it to the State Department of State for a ruling. Under New York Stretch, you would still have to submit a variance to the state, but an interpretation, a local interpretation about how energy code provision might apply to a specific project, your code enforcement officer could issue that. It's also more flexible in terms of how you administer the code. Third-party testing, for example, we do a lot of blower door testing for other local builders, and we would charge a fee for it. And then builders figured out, and the installation subcontractors and HVAC subcontractors learned very quickly if they got the right credential, they could offer that testing for free as part of their service to get the contract. So it was we never did much of it, so it wasn't really a big deal to us, but that's one way that you can reduce costs with New York Stretch. Because New York Stretch, like that comparison document will identify where there's certain performance testing that's required in New York Stretch. And so a builder might look at that and say, hey, I've got to pay somebody to come in and do this testing, it's going to cost more. And my answer is, not necessarily. If you talk to your HVAC contractor, your installation contractor, and the authority with jurisdiction, the code officer is okay with that third party testing your duct tightness or testing your the air tightness of your home, then that's not necessarily an additional cost. So there's a lot of ways to save money and let the market solve the problems for you in a profitable way.
Is it true that the governor next year could sign this into legislation and mandate it?
No, I don't believe so. That's a complex question, so I hesitate to give you a.
We were told at one of the meetings that the New York State could adopt this, and this could become the code. And you would have no choice to adopt it or not, you'd be part of it.
So they're looking at making it, the next energy code as part of the regular code cycle.
Okay,
So if the last code was adopted May 12th, 2020, it's typically a 3-year cycle.
right.
So a lot of the New York stretch provisions are being submitted as part of a code change process.
For 2023.
Yeah, and I'm actually retained by NYSERDA as a consultant for a code change on a project related to that. And so we're actually recommending a lot of the New York stretch provisions be integrated into the energy code because we believe in the value of it. For me as a builder, to have a code officer, a third party come in and do a visual inspection, for example, one thing that is an open wall inspection of all the measures that are already identified in the code. As a builder, I like that, because then I've got a third party independent that comes in and looks at my work, does an evaluation of it, and signs off. So if there's ever a problem in the future, it's not just my word about or even photos that I may have prepared about that insulation or air sealing installation. It's a third party.
We do that now.
Yeah.
So it's one of our practices that we do.
Yeah, so that's a fantastic practice. It really is. But so, just to stay on that point, I'm going to deviate for a minute because I am again kind of Trump Kaz and local. There's also a lot of talk about all electrification codes coming, and that actually concerns me more than anything we could find in New York stretch, to be honest, because at least this market, from what we found on our projects, there isn't a sufficient air source heat pump market out there. I mean, we've installed 10 to 12 of those units right now based on, just trying them out, trying to learn with them on the buildings we own or the properties. My father has a lot of rental properties in the area, so we try things ourselves to live with the consequences before we, integrate them into the houses we build. And we can't locate enough qualified air source heat pump installers to actually do the work. On a few projects we've done it, the utility bills are actually increased because when you shift from natural gas, for example, to electrification, utility bills often go up. So even though there are significant climate benefits to it and greenhouse gas reduction benefits, from a monthly operating cost, you can actually have a higher cost. You have to be very careful about disadvantaged communities. And there's ways to solve that through related improvements, building envelope, air sealing, thermal envelope enhancements. But the bigger push that concerns me at the state level is an all-electric code, because that gets to be very challenging as a builder to deal with. Most of the projects we do actually utilize ground source heat pumps or geothermal. So for us, we know it, but that's a very expensive option. Often it's not something that most projects would think about. Particularly village setting where there's not enough space, it's very difficult to drill the wells, can't do horizontal systems.
We had one done in the village, but the homeowner had a fair amount of money to put into it, and he was passionate about it, and I'm glad he did it, but the pain or the cost of what he went through, and not every resident could bear that.
No, I mean, the average cost of a well drill is $10,000 to $11,000 per.
I think he
per
said
hole.
50 something? Yeah, I think he said he was in the 50s. Thousand to do the system, but he had
So, yeah, the whole system
zero.
would make sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, just drilling the wells outside, which you wouldn't have in a traditional, air source heat pump or natural gas system would be, $10,000 to $20,000 before you even look at a pair of equipment.
Yeah.
There's really good utility incentives for that now, actually, air and ground source heat pumps. The utilities have good incentives, but so that actually state aim at an all-electric code at some point, 2023, 2025. And that, to me, makes New York stretch all the more attractive to adopt, because it's fuel neutral. New York stretch does not require all-electric HVAC or all-electric buildings. Well, what it does is just, again, kind of nice marginal improvements to the performance testing, the visual inspection, the efficiency of the systems that you install, those sort of things. Nice incremental measures that basically get you to, so these are numbers from NYSERDA they prepared. They basically said on the commercial side, 7.1% energy efficiency savings, New York stretch versus base code. about $1.14 per square foot incremental cost on the commercial side. And I can share these analyses also. Again, these were prepared by a firm out of California using market data. So it's not a localized analysis about how the cost would work in the Village of Fayetteville or Village of Casanova or wherever. But so payback on the commercial side about 10.5 years of minimum commercial requirements. Residential side, the NYSERDA estimates about $1,800 higher first cost if you comply with New York stretch, the residential provisions. Payback about 6.4 years. Again, Rochester Home Builders Association came up with about $9,000 in additional cost when we looked at it. Kind of at hearings like this, went back and forth on it. We said we'll take your estimate at $4,800 additional first cost of the house, but here are all the other benefits, energy and non-energy benefits that stretch provides. If you were to adopt the whole house energy mechanical ventilation provision, for example, that's really a healthy building strategy. So the benefits of a healthy building and a healthy home far outweigh any energy benefit, and they far outweigh the cost of that ERV or HOV. So that's why we've been putting ERVs in our houses for 20 years, because of the quality of indoor air and the indoor environment far, far outweighs the energy benefit, which is also a good one. So here, I will show you just one photo. So this is one way to not make it cost more. You can pass my laptop around if you want to, more than welcome to do it. Or I'll look at this. So this is one we built out in Skaneateles in 2004. And what that shows is the wood we took out of the wall. So it was, I believe, 58 2x6 by 10-foot studs that we actually took out of the thermal envelope. And so when we did that, if you look at it at today's prices, if you just go by 2x6s at Lowe's, it's about $2,400. The first cost of an ERV system that we would put in our house right now is $2,800. So we take the wood out of the wall from an R1 and put either, closed cell spray foam insulation, or if you're worried about global greenhouse gas, you could do a blown-in batted system or some sort of continuous insulation. Take all the wood out of the wall so that hole, that large doorway disappears, so the home is more energy efficient forever. But we've saved about $2,500 to do it. We take the $2,500 and go buy the ERV, and it's essentially a net balance of zero additional cost. And the homeowner gets really appreciative or excited about it, because not only are the utility bills reduced, the moisture and the durability concerns reduced about all the moisture and water that flows through a building assembly in a moist climate like this, that's gone because there's more insulation in the wall. And then they've got a healthy balanced ventilation system. So it's a nice trade-off, and that's one way we would say that New York stretch doesn't have to cost $1 more if you think about how to do things properly and follow well-established building science. So if you are already doing visual inspections, you understand all the things that your code officer discovers on a site, mist insulation. We do a lot of multifamily affordable housing, and the misses on those, the sheetrockers forget to cut out supply and return registers and dwelling units, and then we go to test them. We go and find those things after the test fails, and then we go in and do the diagnostics and make sure that it find where the problem is to fix it. So I think with that, there's just a few others, but I'm probably at what you expected me to take for time. So I would just say thank you. I'll share the PowerPoint. There's a NYSERDA website that I'll share that has all the resources on it. And NYSERDA makes me, and there's a team of code writers available to provide any sort of assistance, answer any sort of questions. So I would say use that team. It's free for the municipality to do it. If I don't have the answer, I'm happy to go to the different expert on the team, like a commercial expert, and have them give any information that would be helpful as you consider it.
Any trustees have any questions? I think, if you can email the presentation to Lori, that way I may ask just that the code enforcement officer meet with you, just that way we have all the answers if he has any other questions, because, we'd like to look at this, before it becomes, if we can grab a point with a grant and it's something that's better for the environment, better for the people that are doing it, I think it's worth doing. So, what other municipalities around us have adopted it?
So Village of Tully just adopted it in the last month. City of Canandaigua was another one that adopted it So I'm responsible for the Central New York region, Finger Lakes region, and Mohawk Valley. So in this region, you know, Manlius is considered it closely. We presented there a few times. Not sure where it is at this point, but in what I would consider, you know, our area, Village of Tully only so far.
Okay.
Did you say they're grants
There are,
through NYSERDA or through the state or?
through Net Survey. And Chris or Amanda
Yes.
from the clean energy community can tell you exactly what those grants are and what you need to do to qualify for those. What New York Stretch is there's a point system.
Yeah.
And New York Stretch is a high impact activity, so it's worth a lot of points. And there's other actions that communities can do to qualify, but I'm not sure, again, I'm not the expert in that program, so I'm not sure what those are.
Okay. Right. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Great. Have
Have a good night.
Yeah, take care.
Feeder Street house removal, just want to let you know, we are working on, they asked for an additional, it's not one property, it's under one parcel, but it's two different structures. So we're just updating the construction documents to create two different structures, not one structure, even though it's on one parcel. But they're still planning on starting on the 29th of this month to tear those houses down. So as soon as we get more information, Lori found out today that they needed to split the properties through the process, so we're working on that. Electric and gas are all taken care of, and sewers will be done after the project is taken care of.
Check out the beaver tree.
Yes, if you've noticed, the
That's
Canal
amazing.
Corporation was down there
It's
the 2 days after, a beaver cut a tree down on the other side.
Oh,
Yes.
did it go down finally?
It's down,
When?
and the
When-
Canal
when
Corp,
did it go down?
it was down last week, and
Oh, I was
next
there
thing you know,
last-
there was 10 canal trucks down
I
there,
was
so
there. I
the
was
Canal
there.
Corporation was definitely on it and knew about it, so it was
So
great.
did they take the beaver away?
It was great.
They were down there taking a beaver dam away, yeah.
It was standing up when I saw it. It
You
was,
could see that the feeder went down as soon as they cleared the
It was
dam,
about
so.
had that much left.
It was, I should have taken a picture of it, it was pretty
Well, I
cool.
should have too.
It was
And
pretty
I
cool.
asked
Saw it on the
Joan,
neighbors thing,
Joan
yeah.
was with me and I asked her to and she would.
Bishopsbrook and Limestone
nicer to 'em.
washout, they started today. I don't know if you guys heard the banging, but they were down there. They're back on working on the portion of the behind Town Hall, that all the rock, they're placing that, so they started again today. Last week they finished Bishopsbrook, so the land is returned to the way it was. The paving's done, all the guardrails are done except one little section, and they just had to cut it and curve it. So that'll be done, and then we're just waiting for Dan's handrail to be put up on the front side.
Yeah.
It's in the powder coating right now, but the DPW is installing that, so as soon
I'm
as
just
that's.
worried that somebody's gonna go in that creek.
Yeah, so, but the guardrail's up, so.
Okay, good.
And we left the other one up so that they can't go through it, so.
Did you get the sign that says Dan's handrail done
Yeah,
yet? Is
yeah,
that-
yeah. So I just want to let everybody know those, one is 99% done, the other one has started, and they said they will be done before the end of the year, so. Fayetteville Cares Program, I just wanted to thank the trustees, the judge, and my office. We donated 10 meals, 5 to the senior center and 5 to FM schools for needy families for Thanksgiving. I really want to thank all of you for stepping up and supporting it. So we gave 10 needy families on behalf of the trustees, the judge, and myself, Thanksgiving dinners from Tops to feed their families. So I do want to say thank you to all the elected officials in the village for doing that. DPW, Trustee Small.
Okay, so we have our memo list, and we just talked about number one, the houses on Feeder Street, and beginning around the 29th of November. Also about the number two, the fence rail system around Bishop's Brook and Limestone Creek. Number three, Carriage Hill, Pine Ridge and South Spring Street, the storm line under the road has been replaced by the
Had the pipe up at Duguid Park, so we just took that section of pipe and did it ourselves, rather than, the contract prices were just outrageous, so we were able to do it ourselves.
Parks, nothing really different as far as what we've talked about in the past. The dog park will be closing December 1st. So far the weather has been conducive to leave it open, but following that date it will be closed no matter what the weather is, basically, I think, because we never know when it's going to change. Holiday decorating is on track. You've probably seen them out working on some of that. Main Street, the lights and the LED replacements for installs, they're working on that. The paint striping we talked about last time will be done in the spring at this point, and any of our proposed areas. The work on Mechanic Street, the asphalt curb has been installed on the north side that we talked about. You have
Yes.
some more information on that?
Yeah, so let's talk about Mechanic Street for a little bit. So the last few storms, and they've been big storms. We've flooded the corner of Burdick and Brookley to the point where it's not going into the house, but it's creating a situation. So we met last week, Ken from Barton LaJudas, Pat, myself, down at the site with the homeowners, and then we came up here after. So I just want to let everybody know that we're contacting WEP, doing the porous pavement and those two strips. If you remember, I'll draw my little drawing, but there's a loop. If you look at the pavement down there, that's different than the regular pavement, that needs to be vacuumed. And what it is there's 4 feet of pipe and then stone, and the water's supposed to go through the porous pavement into those things and then stay there and lay there. But what we think is happening is that the porous pavement it's like filled with silt. So we're going to try to vacuum it with WEP's vacuum that they have, and then open that up. What's happening is it's backing up during large events, and it wasn't doing that before. So we feel like the system, it's been wet, but we feel like the system isn't working. We're going to camera jet all of Brookley Drive to make sure that all the catch basins are working and are working and flowing. We've got the Miracles file on the question came about, did Miracles change anything in the parking lot? And they didn't. So we looked at the file from the planning board, and nothing has changed in the parking lot. We are going to have to add in the spring a catch basin. If you're looking up Mechanic Street, there's a catch basin at the top and there's a catch basin at the bottom. It's the longest stretch in the village without a catch basin in between. So we're going to break the catch basin system, or the pipe in the middle, and put a catch basin in the middle to try to catch anything coming down halfway through. So we're working as that. We got the as-built maps for the project. So in 2022, we are going to have to replace the road. We're going to grind the road down and pitch it, so that recrown it, so that it flows more towards, and we're going to add a curb all the way down. If you guys remember, we stopped about the second house down with curbing. We're going to go all the way down now. The curb that we put in temporarily has worked. It flowed and it kept the water going down. But where we're seeing the flooding is from the catch basins on Brookley Drive. The high flow areas aren't able to let the water seep in, and they're ending up in the catch basin. Then they go over the catch basin, over the curb, into the front yard. So, but we're going to replace the asphalt and the pitch, and also repave Mechanic Street and add the curb to the whole left-handed side. We're also going to talk to code enforcement. That house up on the right that's been under construction forever, we're getting a lot of silt buildup from that. So we're going to work with codes to get that that sock put around it to stop the infiltration from coming down. So when people say, "Oh, why are you doing this to that person? He's a nice guy. Why are you?"
I thought they
we're
had
doing
to
that.
do that. I
No,
thought
it's
that
under
was-
an acre, but you can do it,
okay.
and you can request it, even though it's not required. You can request it. So we're going to ask that the code
place is
enforcement
a
officer
mess.
have requested that
Where is
done.
that house?
It's
Halfway up on.
third house
right-hand
down as you're coming down Center
If you're
Street
going up the
on
right
your left-hand side. So,
It's a
so
mess.
we talked to the owners that are affected the most. I think they came up today and picked as-built up, looked at the file. So I think we've got a good game plan. But in the spring, that's going to be what we have left over for CHIPS funds will be used to take care of that. We have about $30,000 left over from last year's funds that we haven't spent yet. So that will be enough to take that road down, repave it, recrown it, and put the curbing down the left-hand side.
Did we camera right across the street?
We did. So if you
The
look,
camera.
you guys, I'm
There's
sorry.
That thing flows pretty good there, in there. I took a look at it.
Sorry, this picture's
Can't wait to
crude,
see
but it
this.
works.
I took a look at it.
Mark didn't
Can be as
pass.
rude as he wants to make it, right?
Mark didn't pass his art classes in
I didn't
high
pass
school.
it. So if you look, this is the Hornet's Nest,
Right.
and that's that last building, the law
Right.
office. those two high catch basins, what they do is they go like this, then they go down Elm Street, and they end up in that large parking lot that we have, the big U-shaped, that's our overflow.
Yeah.
Same with this side, it ends up going in and goes over there. What we're gonna do is vacuum all of this, all of the parking lot, because what we think happens is it's not flowing down.
Yeah.
So these are meant for high storm flows, but what happened in the last storm is this one was full and going over, nothing going on over here.
Right.
So what's happening is all the water's coming down Elm or down Miracle's parking lot.
So there's nothing.
It's going in here, right? Well, it's coming down here, and because it's not going in the ground, so we did clear this. There was a plug here. We
Yeah.
cleared that. But that doesn't get us, sorry, guys.
I'm
Sorry.
surprised you
It's,
did.
it's not very, but, so we are working on it. So just, one of the things through this process that we've learned is these Save the Rain grants, which are great, but there's some maintenance that we've got to start doing, that we've got to really do. We cleaned off the flexi pave. There was moss growing up on that. That meant that there was water laying there. We cleaned that off. So the flexi pave is draining. But we're getting
How often
some,
you gotta vacuum that porous pavement? I knew we had to vacuum it when we
Once
put
a
it
year.
in. And how much
Once
does
a
it
year.
cost us to vacuum it?
our problem with our machine is it's only going to vacuum a certain section because we have the outside brush.
Uh-huh.
So you can't get, you could only do a
Can't get into
quarter
the
of it or a
corners
half of
there,
it
whatever.
before you get too close.
Oh.
WEP has one without, so we're just going to see if WEP will do it for us.
They borrow it? We borrow it or they?
That's what we're
loan it
going to
us,
ask.
or-
We're asking. So I talked to the director, the new commissioner, Sharon Hardy, last week, and we're just waiting to see if they can do it. So that's a long thing on. But I want you to know, these water events, and I don't know if the town's having the same problem. We got 3 inches the first one. The first one we got 3.5. The second one we got 2.5. And in about 20 minutes the other day on a Friday, we got 1.5 inches. So our system is not built, no one's system is built for that. But we've got to definitely work at some of these things to try to figure out what we're going to do to mitigate
Well,
this.
I know you say that, but outside of that spot, what other problem spots do we have? I mean, they're gonna identify any problem spots for sure.
No. The issue there is it's just coming up and over and taking it away.
Right.
If you do nothing, it's gone 20 minutes later. The problem is it's literally taking everything and just pushing it right into the yard and bringing it back. So the curb helped. Raising the sidewalk because we have to redo the sidewalk, that's going to help. There's an old system, a laid up granite tile system in there. It's working and it's flowing. So it's literally laid up granite with a lid. And
That's
they
the
just,
one.
it's the old sewer
That's the one-
system.
Yeah, that's one of them. that
It's
they had
working.
dug up.
The catch basins were flowing. Our catch basins were flowing.
Oh, I
Where we're
got that
getting
part, Mark. I'm saying outside of that spot in the village, what other
Well,
opportunities
there's,
do we
that's,
have?
that spot, but that spot also, on Center Street, it goes down and it overflows down there too. So
Right, no,
we're
I'm
talking
with
the
you.
bottom of Mechanic, but also Center, where Mechanic comes into Center, the thing there, they cleaned it out, they vacuumed it. Do you get any, man?
Not the last time.
Okay. But
No, we
anyway,
have-
there, it was going down Center and it was overflowing too.
I guess my question is, I drove around on this first one where we got 3 inches and, like under the bridge, there was a lot of flooding, what you just described. I'm not asking as a criticism, I'm saying, what other places do we identify? Because that's where you figure out where you have,
Franklin Street, we have another issue.
Yeah.
We put a dry basin in there and it helps, but it's probably not the solution that we were looking for.
Yeah, the church too.
Yeah.
The one at the church is dry.
Other than that, everything's flowing
It's
and
dry.
we're getting overflow, but the overflow is gone. And it's not getting into anybody's property or it's getting into, this one's getting into their property and getting into their, the park in front of your house down there, that floods. You've got my
That's
neighbor
right.
across the street, he's
And
got a
Center
pond,
Street
he
was
pumps
flooded.
it from his one backyard to the other side and then just lets it go. People are learning how to deal with it, but what I'm saying is it's getting worse and worse. It's not getting better, so we're gonna have to identify areas where we can help. We're gonna have to clean catch basins more, we're gonna have
Yeah,
to
they-
vacuum
right.
the streets more,
They're gonna
we're gonna have to
clean.
be doing more of that.
right. Well, I mean, and the first one, I think it happened just after we had some wind and it was like
Yeah.
really the first big leaf fall. And so it sort of made sense. I mean, and you could see DPW out cleaning out stuff and where they were, it was like just amazing amount of water pouring into these systems.
Right.
So you
And
know,
the
I think
leaves
that's,
are-
it doesn't really matter how good your system is, the leaves are gonna
The
cause
leaves,
that
the
problem.
leaves feed it to 'em.
But,
But this wasn't leaves, because the catch basins weren't, they're high flow
no,
catch
I
basins.
understand. I was just curious if, what other areas we know we got that one, you got Franklin, and I was just curious what the
Yeah.
other ones were.
Yeah.
The one at the
That's the
bottom of
worst.
the church.
Those two are the worst. Oh, yes, on
Which one at
Sheffield
Church?
Lane.
Yeah.
At
Corners,
Sheffield.
it's
But
in
that's dry.
That's in the town, so that's one that I think we're going to just curb it and get it to go past the property.
That's dry though.
That's that one in the corner on Sheffield.
Mhm.
If you
The
look,
big old white
the
house.
house is in the town, but the water's coming down Sheffield, and they say we're flooding their yard.
Mhm.
So we're just gonna put a curb down that.
Is that where
corner.
the stones are, where they put the stones?
Yes.
That house,
Yes.
that White House on this?
So we're gonna put a curb there to keep it to go past. But here's an example. Here's what it's gonna do. If you look at Wellwood right now, if you've looked at Wellwood in front by that crossing
It
wall,
was terrible.
it's a lake. All we're gonna do is add to that lake. And this is the thing that we're trying not to do. We're trying not to push a problem from one side to the other.
That's what happens with water flows.
Right.
Right.
So we gotta look at maybe working with the town, putting a catch basin there, tying it in before it goes across the road.
So we have a drainage district and where the town meets IC,
Mhm.
Millfield and Churchill Lane, whatever. So if that's where the water's coming and going down, we could talk about making a connection there.
Yeah.
Because they have water in lawns,
Yeah.
and it flows to IC where it's got nowhere to go.
Right. And it's not going there, it's just laying in that, and I understand it's probably a nuisance, but it's not a structural, there's not going into the house, it's not getting near the house, but
Is that
we
lake
wanna
in
take
front
care
of
of it.
Wellwood new? Because I don't recall ever seeing that lake.
The issue
Not as
is
bad
that
as this
normal
one.
rain, we've had 37 inches of rain, or 34 inches, I don't wanna be quoted in the wrong number. But in the last 3 storms, we've gotten 7.5 inches of rain.
Yeah,
There's no system, it's just been so saturated.
yeah.
The ground it just has nowhere to go, so as soon as you get 1.5 inches, we got as much issues with 1.5 inches in 20 minutes than we did with 2.5 in a day or 3 in a
Yeah.
day.
Yeah,
Because the volume at the ground is so saturated and there's nowhere for it to go.
yeah.
So once you try to see some of this land, if it dries out and we don't get a very wet winter or a dry spring, it'll help.
Yeah.
We've kind of gotten caught in this vicious cycle. It's been wet all year.
I think our winter's supposed to be pretty good, snowy too,
Right.
which is not.
Okay.
Sucks.
Thanks, Mike.
Alright,
Okay,
sorry.
the speed bumps have been placed on Warren and South Burdick Street and marked and signed and things, and I've actually been driving around a few places in Syracuse where I end up sometimes, they've actually got the same speed bumps on some of their streets now. Stafford Ave has one near the Palace Theater, and there's some others around, so it appears to be hopefully going to solve some of our problems and others. Leaf season, they're continuing with the leaves. Of course, we had a nice weekend, so a lot of things are out there currently. But they're working as fast as they can, as much as they can. Overtime's been approved for them,
Yes.
just like we have any other year, so that they can try and take care of that before the snow comes soon.
Yep. Tonight.
Yeah. I heard
Thanks for
tonight.
painting the speed bumps.
What's that?
Thanks for painting the speed bumps.
Oh, yeah. So it's good. The salt shed cover is there. They will either work on it now or in the spring. Bridges are still underway on Walnut and West Franklin Street.
We found out the grant, we should find out about the grant next month.
By next time,
Yep.
okay. The new trees have been planted, and I have to get with the tree commission about the emerald ash borer treatment and or removal of trees. And as was mentioned last meeting, he's working with Bartlett's on the memory tree and seeing how we can go about trying to save that perhaps. And then the your dike at Wind Ridge, like we've talked about before. He has one purchase on here for the front garage door. Bottom panel needs replacement with safety bar. Mid-state door cost is $2,552 from his account 1640.4. I didn't say if it's on, I'm assuming it's on state contractor or on county contractor.
It's a yeah,
Or if
but
it's a
it's
repair or
damaged.
damaged or whatever,
Okay.
it needs to be replaced. So.
All right, so we need a motion.
So
So
moved.
moved or second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Lori, did you have anything from Bartlett that he needed approved? No? Just the door?
Yeah, the Bartlett that he sent out was for the damaged trees on Brooklyn.
Okay.
You need to send it to the insurance company.
Okay. Okay. Fire department Trustee Kinsella, applications?
Yep, 2. Celia Nicole, she wants to be a record keeper.
Okay.
So move.
Moved by
Second.
Dan, second by Dennis. Any discussion? All the background checks are done?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Austin McFarland wants both fire and ambulance. Everything's all set, so move.
Moved by Dan,
Second.
second by Pam. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any purchases?
Nope. Not according to him.
Schedule the continuation of our cannabis public hearing that we had during the summer. We said we would revisit it before the end of the year. So I'd like to make a motion that we have it at our first scheduled meeting in December on or about 6 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Mayor, should we say, talk about
I said
the meeting?
first scheduled meeting.
Oh,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And you guys will know in a second why she's asking that question.
Yeah.
Okay, round table. Dennis,
All set.
Pam,
Nope.
everybody's gonna be here for the tree lighting?
I
Everybody's
may.
good? You can't be?
Well, I might be here for part of it, but I have
Okay.
a little bit of a
Yeah,
conflict.
You're good? Pam, you're good?
Tree lighting.
The, rec is all set, I think. I think
Okay.
everything's all set.
Okay.
Karen sent out that thing today
Yeah.
on it.
We
so-
Yeah.
gotta,
We
What?
need to be there.
we got our marching orders. so-
Yeah.
All set.
Pretty precise.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So,
But
Okay.
anyway, everything's all set as far as I know.
Pam, you're good?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Dennis, or Dan?
Yeah, the only thing is the, recreation and we're giving out hot chocolate.
Okay. Mike?
Just a couple of things from Manlius Historical. They've had a successful craft show over the last couple of weekends, or it was a couple of weeks ago, I should say. And they have been invited back to the town center for their miniature tree festival and another fundraiser for Manlius Historical. So if anybody gets an opportunity to go up there, it'll be after, I think it's the end of next week that it's running, after the trees are delivered on the 1st. So 2nd or 3rd, and they're having a couple of functions at the resort also, so there'll be a lot of people that will be mingling around for different events up there that will be able to participate in the fundraising aspect of things, so that's all.
Okay. Lori?
Arnold?
Ted? Okay. So the tree lighting, we're good, everybody knows. Village holiday party, the only thing that's changed is the location. The library, because of the COVID and they had to take and close their snack bar and beverage area, so they can't have food in the library. So they said they'd love to do it, but they didn't want to. So I talked to the senior center director. She was very happy.
Move up there.
We redid that, so I thought it would be nice. So the only change is we're going to be at the senior center. The December meeting schedule, if you look at our schedule, we fall like, it's just the 13th and then the 27th. It doesn't fall very well for people in the busy holiday. So I'd like to see if you're interested in, we just have one meeting in December, and that would be the 20th. So we need a motion to
So
go
moved.
ahead. Moved by Dennis,
Second.
second by Mike. Does that mean
20th at 6.
Thank you.
So 20th at 6 o'clock. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. OSEBA termination agreement, and this is just because we went to a different thing, so I need a motion to authorize the mayor with the approval of council for the agreement to terminate with OSEBA.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. I just want to let you all know, there was a nice note on here. It said, hard to believe that next year will be my 50th anniversary of my election to the Fayetteville Village Board. Sincerely, Robert Baldwin. So, just Bob Baldwin. I didn't know he was, I wasn't here 50 years ago, and you were close. So.
Well, he was the attorney
Exactly. So,
afterwards.
thought it was very nice. So,
Yeah.
any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next is we have one application left that we did not approve, and this is for the Main Street Grant Program through the county that we got the money through. And this is for Avocolis. Lori has the application. If you guys have noticed, next to Freedom Espresso, the hair design or salon has started, and I think they've done a very nice job. That's part of the money that we spent on that. We've approved the others, and we're working through it. So this is going to be paint and painting the whole exterior of the Avicoli's block. So we need a motion
So moved.
with proper paperwork.
Second.
So move.
Okay, moved and seconded by Pam. Any discussion? And that still leaves us $6,000 or $4,000 more. So if you know anybody else, we
I'll
have
tell you,
$4,000
that
left.
place next to Espresso, that's beautiful.
Looks
Yeah,
great.
Yeah,
Wow.
so,
They did a good job.
yep.
A lot of people in the village will end up having that put on.
Yeah.
that Same color.
Yeah. So,
It's great.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next is, so at the last mayor's meeting, one of the villages hired Bonadio Group. Bonadio Group is the people that do our audits every time we have a federal grant, and they've done our village audits before that. They hired them to do a lost revenue analysis for the American Rescue Plan. That's one of the ways that you can justify the funds that we got. So right now, we've gotten about $3,000. It's sitting in our account. We haven't touched it. So I'd like to make a motion that we authorize Bonadio Group up to $2,000 to do this analysis on our lost recovery through court, through ambulance, through all the other fees, to give us a report that we can use to repay our general fund of lost revenue and expenses year to date, or COVID to date.
Second.
So,
Okay.
What budget you taking on?
Can we take it out of the American Rescue or the clerk?
I don't know about that, so we'll take it out of the clerk's fund.
Budget.
account.
They paid $1,500. I'm just getting up to $2,000 just in case it takes a little bit longer. I think we have a bigger budget.
Okay.
But they analyzed, the only thing that we're a little different is, we're a bigger, we have the fire and the EMS and the court and the thing, and they're just a little bit smaller,
I think
so.
they have police though.
They have police, so theirs might have been a little different, so.
It's a good idea for you too, Sarah.
Yeah, really.
They were blown away.
I love Bonadio.
They actually, so they contacted the federal government and went through the people that are, and they told them exactly what, and so they verified it with them, sent the report, got the report back and said, yes, this meets, and then boom, they put it with the thing and did everything, so.
So far, I've been doing it and it wasn't that good, so. We'll have a discussion.
Yep. Okay, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So again, I want to wish all of you a happy Thanksgiving, and I'll leave this with a statement that was made by the governor on Twitter. No elected official, no New Yorker, no human being should ever be subjected to hate. We won't back down on our fight to protect our neighbors and condemn hate in all its forms. I thought that was a great statement by the governor, and I just wanted to leave us with that because recently there's been some acts of violence against elected officials, and I think it's just wrong. So with that, I'd like a motion to adjourn the
So
meeting.
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Do you want my drawing? Anybody want my drawing? Anybody?
Matt's gonna,
I could take it.
you're gonna take it and
Does anybody-
frame that?
It's pretty good.
You say this is our,
Lessons, you know?
It was effective.
You know, I hate to tell you, but I can see it for God's sakes, I know it by heart, but jeepers, creepers, your drawing has nothing to do with it.
right, you just confused us.
I know.
Thank you.
Oh, God.
That's, you guys just cut that up for Jerry.
Dennis, what do
Okay.
you think about your water?
And he was in
Water
today.
there?
Yeah, he came, got the as-built,
I didn't drink it.
and then he's,
Yeah.
but I told him that I was just gonna do just tonight.
Okay.
So much water now that pretty much float.
With me.
Oh, you got it.
Done with this?
I'm good.
Are you cooking Thanksgiving dinner?
I love them, I'm not used to
Well,
seeing
portions.
You know
Portions?
what I mean?
My husband is gonna do,
You're having it at home or?
Everything is, right?